talk about calibrations, record management, and traceability for a minute. So we've got a couple of ways that folks tend to handle this process. One is everything is company owned. It's on a very clear register, very clear list, and then every time we conduct an inspection, we jot down the tool number on that inspection sheet and we're good to go. The other way is we allow folks to have their own employee-owned tools. But we can have a few problems there because maybe all of those tools aren't always on the register, and sometimes we have some difficulties there with maintaining that list. There's a lot to be said though for allowing your folks to have their own tools. It tends to be that the employee-owned tools get treated better than the company-owned tools, but that's a whole other video and a whole other topic that maybe we'll talk about sometime. But the typical process is that we get these tools inspected on an interval. Maybe they're checked on an annual or semi-annual, but we're going to check these tools on a regular basis to make sure they're still calibrated and good to use. The problem is if one of those tools was checked 11 months ago, it was good, and it's checked today and it's out of tolerance, it's bad, well, what do we do with all the parts that were checked with it in between? So this kind of necessitates what a lot of folks do is that they create this secondary register, the secondary index of every time we had an inspection, we also note the tool that was used, and then that allows us to filter all of the inspections from the past 11 months to only the ones that were used with that tool, and then we can go cross-check those and come up with some system or some way of determining when the tool went bad. Do we need to contact a customer? What are our issues? It's really complicated, and it's oftentimes very difficult to do. So these systems are just very difficult to work with, and the record keeping can get very, very complex. One of the problems with overly complex record keeping is it incentivizes folks to cut corners. It incentivizes folks to fudge data because they want to get the job done quickly and efficiently, and if the paperwork's getting in the way, unfortunately the paperwork's what's going to suffer. So we need a solution that does not require all of this complex paperwork and tracking that still allows our folks to buy their own tools, have some accountability. Well, here's what I found works. It's going to require a little bit of a budget, it's going to require some training, a little bit of work, but it's going to work wonders for you. What you need to do is get yourself a set of certified blocks. These do need to be certified to a national or international standard. Generally speaking, if the blocks are NIST traceable, which means that that block was checked with a piece of equipment that was recently certified to something else, then in any case you've got the whole train going all the way up to the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, where these are certified blocks. They are exactly the dimension that we say they are. So with these, you can get there's all sorts of options available depending on what you're using, from pyramid blocks, where maybe it's 12 inches at the outer diameter, 1 inch at the top. You can check ID on some, and OD and everything else. There's just plenty of options available here, and in a variety of sizes. What you need to do is get the appropriate set of blocks for the tools that you have available in your organization. Then you're going to want to set up your own calibration tracking method for these. Now, because these blocks stay in one place and they're not subject to a lot of wear and tear, then you can put these on a 5-year recalibration or certification interval. And truth is, there are companies out there that will send a van out to your facility. They'll acclimate the temperature and humidity to the blocks, and then they'll check them, and you never even have to send them out. And you have very, very limited downtime in your production management system. So it works wonders for you. Then what you need to do is write a procedure. This procedure needs to be signed off by top management and in your operations management and leadership team, so that everyone is for sure on board. So what we're going to do is train, once we get that procedure written, it's going to define a few requirements for us. One of those requirements for a daily spot check. What this means is that anyone on your team who is performing a documented inspection, any inspection where we write down the numbers or make a go, no go decision based off of it, they need to perform a spot check of their equipment that day before they use it on anything that they're measuring. Now, benefit that this is going to give you is that if all of your people are regularly performing those spot checks. They have signed off on the procedure that they know they have to provide these spot checks. They understand the difference in the tolerances. They can easily identify if it is a pass or fail or go, no go type situation. Well, you've got a lot to work with there. And the key benefit that you get is that these folks can then tell the auditor or the customer when they come in the same story. Because here's the thing, the documented information that you have in kind of the older school system works. It is objective evidence for the audit. But as we talked about, sometimes we can have gaps in there. Sometimes we can have problems with tools or replacements of tools that just make it really difficult to work with. So when you have your team performing these spot checks, what you're doing is you're empowering your people to work to a process and not to a documented information system. So you're teaching them the process of checking their tools, the value of a good measurement. And then when your auditor or your customer comes in and they talk to the first guy and he says, well, I do a spot check every day and that's how I know my tool's good. That might not sound too great to the auditor the first time, but when he talks to the second, the third, and the fourth person, he talks to the supervisor and he sees the procedure and the training records are all in alignment. This, my friends, is perfect objective evidence. Interviews with people can be considered objective evidence in an audit. And now, if that tool is off today, that team member has been trained on exactly what to do, who to report it to, and what the next step is when that tool does not pass for that day's inspection. We've eliminated the gaps, we've eliminated paperwork trails, and we've empowered our people to do their job so that they can continue to innovate, they can continue to come up with new ideas. We've reduced this paperwork burden that honestly is another source of nonconformities in your system. So make sure that when you have a problem, don't jump straight to the next paperwork-laden solution. While it might work, it's not the best idea, it's not the best solution. And calibrations, and record management tracking is a great example of how some out-of-the-box ideas can do a great job to help you and your team.